And we are back with more News Talk Saga 960. So very glad you could join us to wrap up your work week on this Friday edition of the Mark Petronis Show. Well, there's been a lot of talk of Chinese infiltration of our elections. That was one of the things. That was one of the key reasons why, supposedly, Justin Trudeau tried to confront Xi Jinping, China's leader, over. And there was a conversation there. It was captured by the cameras. It was written about. That pissed off Xi Jinping, who then gave Justin Trudeau what for. But somebody who's been keeping a close eye on this story and has some details that maybe you haven't heard is Andy Lee, coming to us from beautiful Calgary, Alberta. How cold is it in Calgary today?
It's not bad today. I think it's like -5. So it's good for Calgary right now. Yeah,
that's good. I like to ask those questions. Not just because I'm in Florida, but just because I like to know what's going on in beautiful Alberta. But I want to run this video past you. This is a series of questions that were asked of the government about this situation involving, I guess, payoffs, you want to call it that, the buyout of politicians during the election campaign. To what degree was it successful? We don't know. But maybe we should find out. Maybe we should pose some more questions. Maybe we should continue to confront the Chinese. Let's listen.
The government has an opportunity to answer.
Oh, that's not it. That's what we want to do. Yesterday. Let's try it again, because we have to get this right. And so let's find this damn clip. Oh, where are you? Where are you? Well, it is somewhere. We'll have that clip in a second. You know what these people are asking. You know what questions they're asking, Andy. It has to do with the 11, I guess. I mean, I think it's probably more than that. Why has the government been holding back on releasing information about this issue, do you think?
Well, I mean, that's a loaded question. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to release that information if I was, taking money from Chinese Communist members, and funds like that. But I mean, this has happened, right? It's not just this. There's so much of this that goes on. Douglas Todd has done fantastic work as of late about hometown associations. Bob Mackin is a great follow to, track this stuff down. He was showing some pictures of our senators at some Beijing sponsored events and things like that recently. So, and Sam Cooper, of course, is, fantastic journalist. So he, sorry, that's what I was looking for on my phone here. So, he put out an article, I believe it was just yesterday, identifying the so-called middleman who's been meddling in the elections.
So let's get to this in a minute. Let's listen now.
Serious matter in the public interest that requires an answer. Who are the 11 election candidates who received hundreds of thousands of dollars funneled through the Beijing's consulate in Toronto in the 2019 election?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to remind the honourable members what the motivation of foreign interference is. It's not to advance any partisan interest. It's to sow chaos and it's to destroy our democracy as we know it.
Mr. Speaker, to be very clear, as I've testified before committee and said in this House, I did not at any time direct the Commissioner of the RCMP.
I was promised a chronology on Thursday afternoon for the Minister and the Prime Minister.
Appeared at the...
Okay, so the point being is that they keep lying.
Well, I mean, once you start lying, it's really hard to stop, right? That's the problem with lying. That's why you just don't lie, right? Once you start a lie, you got to keep it going, and you get deeper.
Yeah, it steamrolls, and then you've got to cover, one lie after another. I mean, before we get to your Chinese work, I got to run this past you as well, because you're one of those who had your accounts frozen. Here's a story in Blacklock's Reporter. Freeland wanted police tabs on account holders. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland told a secret cabinet meeting that Canadians with bank accounts frozen under the Emergencies Act should be denied their money unless they first reported to the police. Banks were pleased. I'll bet they were. They didn't want to unfreeze those accounts. They said, yeah, give it to the cops. So they wanted people like you to go cap in hand to the police, maybe the Calgary police force there, and say, would you mind unfreezing my account, please? I mean, this says a lot about these people's attitudes.
Yeah, so we heard today, again, this isn't the first time we heard it, but we heard during the Emergencies Act inquiry that the banks did act outside of RCMP direction, and some of them acted of their own accord and froze accounts if they deemed that people were perhaps making suspicious transactions. So I feel like that's probably the category that I fell under. But, to think that I would have to, the banks had that responsibility, and they took that responsibility legally as well. So it's a little bit bizarre to think that, I would have to go to the police and be like, my bank froze my account. Can you, give me a hand and unfreezing it, right? So I'm not sure why Freeland would have brought that up other than to maybe identify people that had fallen through the cracks. And we don't know, like the banks, we don't know how, we know how many orders were given to freeze bank accounts, but we don't know how many people had trouble with their banking or were flagged outside of those, those orders in that direction from RCMP. So that's a little bit of a gray area that I think we need to hear a lot more about, because, the banks took that action of their own, they did that all by themselves on behalf of the government. And that's a pretty scary place for them to have gone, of their own accord. So, lots of interesting stuff. We know that Freeland was all over freezing bank accounts, right? She laughed it up. She thought it was hilarious. She thought it was really, really great. So, Michael Sabi has put out a whole lot of nonsense testimony today. He's just flat out refusing to answer questions on the stand. I saw you played too, just before we get to this, that clip about Bill Blair saying that he didn't, direct Lucky and things like that. But we did see some testimony as well during the Emergencies Act inquiry that Bill discussed with RCMP commissioners about how they could throw OPS under the bus and get them to take the fall. Right. That was really dark to me because, this is a time when they all should have been collaborating and working together, right, to solve this protest in a peaceful manner. And instead we had our government and our RCMP saying, no, you know what, let's make OPS the fall guy, right? Let's make them look bad for this. So that was pretty horrific, I thought, for those notes to come up from the, the deputy, I'm not sure if he was the deputy commissioner, but Bill Blair, he was the Minister of Emergency Preparedness, right? This is his plan as an emergency preparedness minister, right? We weren't prepared at all for this protest, so let's throw OPS under the bus. I wish we could get Slawley back up on the stand after this is all done, and maybe he might change his tune a little bit after he hears some of the stuff that's come out. But yeah, if you want to bring that up, that's Sam Cooper's story about the the Chinese interference in the election. So we knew happened, and we know that it happened last year as well. This is why we need a foreign agent registry. We need it desperately. Senator Husak.
You did mention Sabia earlier, though, Andy, didn't you? So this is also from your Twitter feed. Deputy Finance Minister Michael Sabia says he didn't consider long-term financial implications such as ruined credit scores an intended consequence of freezing accounts. If that had been an intended consequence, that would have been a form of extra legal sanction. Is that just a fancy way of saying that they didn't think about the longer term impact because of some kind of legal obligation on their part?
Well, I'm not sure how they couldn't think about it. They must have known that by freezing accounts, that was the intended consequence, was that so people couldn't access their money and make payments. And if you can't make payments, it could affect your credit score, right? Even if it's for a short period of time. So, this was around, a lot of people have their bills and things like that set up mid-month. So that's when this went into effect. Of course, they must have known that credit scores were going to be impacted and that there was going to be long-term flags put on accounts, and that's happened. We've heard that people have maybe got even permanently flagged on their bank accounts because of this. So, and that's going to stick with them for life. So they must have known, this is the finance department. They must have known that this was going to be a consequence. And I do feel like it made it more attractive to them. And as was pointed out, that was a it was an extra legal sanction, right? It went above and beyond just the freezing of accounts. It actually marked these individuals, these protesters, for life, right?
Yeah, exactly. I know we're bouncing a little bit between stories here, but
So this is about Sam Cooper's story. So he said that he had identified the middleman who was meddling in elections, and who was sort of helping maybe funnel funds to candidates and things like that. So this guy is Wei Chengyi, and he endorsed a liberal candidate, Han Dong, in the 2019 election. So, I think that maybe Han Dong is somebody that should answer some questions. He's really, really closely associated with some of these hometown associations that are pro-Beijing and things like that. And like I said, he did, I believe, announce, just let me double check that for a second. I believe he held the news conference announcing his candidacy to run in the 2019 election at Wei's house. Or sorry, not his house, his office. He held it at his office. So, I think that, this sort of stuff is going to be getting rooted out. But if this indeed is one of the middlemen who was meddling in the elections, then it's worth a look. And I think maybe Han Dong should maybe answer some questions as to his relationship with Wei.
yeah, here's your tweet. Wei Chengyi is also an honorary governor of this foundation you were talking about, which manages long-term care facilities in Toronto. You mentioned this, among other things. Heavily criticized during the pandemic. Why were they criticized?
Well, they had an excess of deaths. So you can see the CTV news story that was written on them. The bodies are going out the door. So we know that a lot of for-profit care facilities and things like that had really, really bad responses to the pandemic. The care was really, really appalling. The conditions were appalling during the pandemic. And there was an excess loss of life in our senior populations. We saw it again in another company that was run by a Chinese company, Anbang, and that was a huge scandal. Of course, the sale of our retirement homes to Anbang, and that ended up really, really tragic. It was a tragic story because the homes ended up being seized because the senior abuse and neglect that was going on was, so appalling that the BC government had to actually take them over. So I thought that was just an interesting side note, and I want to look more into this foundation because after the pandemic, this foundation got money chucked at it from the Ontario government. They got a lot of funding to build more long-term care homes, even though it looks like their response to the pandemic was not good. And they're very, very.
Somebody's pockets get lined? What happened there? Somebody get paid off in the government?
Well, like I said, I just found this last night. I just found this link and started researching it. But I'm just curious to see how much money they've gotten from the government and things like that. And like I said, they didn't have a very good pandemic response, and they're very, very political. They've got a lot of people in that foundation who are really, really, into the political game and things like that, and movers and shakers. So, and Wei is sort of right in the center of that. And, if Sam Cooper says that Wei had his paw prints on the 2019 election scandal, then, I tend to believe him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. We've got another clip, as a matter of fact. Now, okay, so this is going back. Were you asked at all to testify? Did you have any interest in testifying?
No, I would have loved to testify, actually, because I had a lot of things to say.
I'll bet you did.
Yeah, because obviously I was with them for a long period of time, like from the beginning, right? So I saw sort of how it built up, and a lot of people made it out to be this nefarious, foreign funded, deep state against the government.
That's the media pushing conspiracy theories. But here's your retweet. Watch as a senior bureaucrat at Finance Canada refuses to admit whether she knew that freezing the accounts of protesters in Ottawa was going to hurt the family members of protesters.
There have been police witnesses who've said they saw your measures work because they heard of people getting calls back from North Battleford or whatever. Come home, the account's frozen and I can't buy groceries. Right? That the police saw that as your measures working because they were affecting people who had nothing to do with the protest other than that they were family members. So, and I put it to you that you must have realized that would be one of the effects of freezing the accounts in the way that they were.
When we developed the policy, we were focusing on those people involved in illegal activities, and certainly in our daily discussions with the CBA, and we had discussion with the RCMP. Certainly, these issues came to life. That was not the focus of the policy development. We understand that was maybe some people were impacted, but we had discussions in the application to say our focus was certainly on these people involved in the activity.
Yeah, collateral damage. Who cares if kids were involved? Who cares if meals were skipped? Who cares if there was no money to pay the bills? Just collateral damage. We wanted to go after the truckers, and we don't care if they had families and children back home.
They gave no warning, right? Like the banks didn't contact their customers or anything like that to even let them know that was going to happen. Basically, you just go to use your card doesn't work, right? Maybe you go to log into your online banking or something like that. You find that you're locked out, you can't get in, right? And then you get on the phone to your bank and you find out that your account's been frozen, right? And then they put you through to whoever. So yeah, I mean, it was really a brutal thing for them to do. And they said, well, we gave you lots of notice. Yeah. So that makes it okay.
You gave us no notice. You didn't even know about it. You just went to buy something, and then you found out, oh, look, no money, no access.
Yeah, and I mean, PayPal still says they that they won't have anything to do with me, right? So, even let me have a PayPal account anymore.
Yeah, these are banksters. Yeah, not gangsters, but they're banksters. Andy Lee joining us on Saga 960. Always a pleasure having Andy coming to us from beautiful Calgary, Alberta. We've been talking about a bunch of different stories, including the Chinese infiltration of our elections. What did you think of Justin Trudeau confronting Xi Jinping? Your take on it is that it's fairly positive. You think at least he tried. That's your take, right?
Well, I mean, I have to give him credit for trying. I thought it was really funny to see, Xi's reaction to him. Obviously, he just brushed him off and put him in his place. So that sort of tells you, what kind of weight he puts on the leadership of our country, right? And of course, Justin Trudeau has been very submissive up until now. So, I think Xi Jinping really, really brushed him off. And of course, it was terribly embarrassing and things like that, not to be taken seriously, by a leader of such a powerful country. So, but, I have to give him credit for trying. But I mean, to me, it just looked like it was really staged. Like I said, there was, press was right there. I think it was more for show. Right? They do this just like Francois-Philippe Champagne. So, I mean, we all know that I did the big story on the lithium mine sales to China, right? That ended up a huge story. It was even picked up in the States. We've got congressmen now who have asked for disclosure from our government. It's quite a big mess. So, I mean, Francois-Philippe Champagne, he was the guy who okayed that, right? Also in the paper saying, well, we have to be mindful of Chinese influence. Well, I mean, this deal went down on your watch, Francois. So, I mean, they're all coming out and saying this. I don't know how genuine they are in their intentions. So I don't think that they're very, they mean what they're saying. I think it's more a little bit of posturing and a little bit of show, given, we've got all this news coming out. There was the Chinese police stations. That was a report that I found too, that became huge, right? And so we've heard about that in Canada-China Committee. Hong Kong Watch has got involved, and Eileen Calvary, she's a really, really fantastic member. So a lot of people internationally are putting scrutiny on our country and the influence that we've allowed to go on, right?
I mean, I see some of the. I want to play this video again. I know people have watched it over and over again, but let's break it down, shall we? This is a post by Jack Posobiec saying Chairman Xi dresses down Justin Trudeau like a junior employee for leaking their private conversation to the media. Trudeau can barely walk after that. Let's watch. Okay, so it starts okay, but I think after about 3 or 4 seconds, look at Xi Jinping's face. It's like, who else can I talk to? You see, his body language is like he's already leaning, like, get me away from this turkey.
Yeah.
而且我们也不是要进行我也有重新咱们就按金融看来进行采访。否则这个结果就好报。
If that is sincerity from your part, free and open and frank dialogue, and it's hopefully to continue to have you continue to look to work constructively together, but there will be things you will disagree on. You will
协助意见，创造条件。
That's great conditions.
好。
I really do feel bad for him sometimes. I mean, it must be really hard,
I guess people feel pity, but I feel nothing but disdain.
I feel bad for him.
No sense of protocol, right? No decorum. Like if I'm having a private conversation with a guy, do I want to go spill it? I mean, I understand openness. Absolutely. Taxpayers need to know what's going on, when it's going on. But if there's an agreement between two leaders that this is between you and I, and we're going to have a conversation, and you take that and you spill your guts to the media, who then plays it up like you're Mr. Great Leader here, taking Xi Jinping to task, and he ends up throwing it back in your face and making you look like a fool. I mean, how is it that I'm supposed to feel sorry for Justin Trudeau?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I feel bad for him sometimes, but I don't feel that bad, right? I mean, I do think that he probably deserved that, for disclosing that. And like I said, I think he did it for show. I think that he took this information. He knows that we're under a tremendous amount of scrutiny, not just nationally, but internationally, for, influence, Chinese influence in our country, and rightfully so. And I think that he, thought that he could use Xi Jinping and be like, well, here I had this talk with him, right? And we're going to sort him out. So, I mean, it was obviously it didn't work out the way that he wanted it to. And Xi called him on it, right? And made him look like an idiot again. So, yeah, I mean, I think, I think we just have to see where this goes. There's a lot of really great committees going on right now. In our House of Commons, there's a lot of really, really good things going on. A lot of good investigations.
Like, right? Like what?
We've got the ArriveCan app going on, right? So there's questions being asked about that. They're investigating the Canadian
$54 million that was spent on an app that could have been done for a tiny fraction of that much money, like 50,000.
Yeah, and so they've asked for a specific committee to study this election influence as well. So they just had their first meeting the other night. They just voted on disclosure, so not a lot happens. But
I mean, money at the end of the day, right? I'm almost 100% sure that it was mostly liberals, if not all liberals, who got cash, maybe some dippers. It's hard to believe the Tories would have been in on that. It's possible, I guess. But, I mean, isn't it possible that there may have been like some cabinet ministers, maybe even Trudeau himself? I mean, we're talking about 11 MPs here.
Yeah, well, like I said, I think Handong is a good place to start with, to be honest, to ask him what he knew about Wei and Wei's involvement, if he is indeed involved. I think that would be a good starting point. But yeah, I mean, like I said, this isn't isolated. This goes on, right? I mean, I put up something the other day. The BC Liberals had United Front members who were donating to their campaign, right? And most of the stuff flies under the radar. A lot of it, you need to go to foreign newspapers and things like that to find it and translate things like that. So, but I mean, it's rampant, right? The Confucius Institutes, I've been really on about that. The UK has ordered them out of the country. Rishi might renege on that though. But in any event, there was an order made to, order the Confucius Institutes out of the country. They partner with universities, right? They exert pro-Beijing influence and things like that. So they've been identified as a security threat, I think back in 2013 by CSIS. And they're still operating. And I did find, a letter that Justin Trudeau personally wrote to one of the Confucius Institutes, congratulating them and saying hello. a few years ago. So, and like I said, I mean, they were already long identified as a security threat. So, it's just sort of like, it's a matter of, is it time, and are we finally going to start to toughen up on our foreign policy, right? And of course, we've got Jolie, who's supposed to be giving us our Indo-Pacific strategy. So it'll be really, really interesting to see what, how that's drafted and what comes of it.
About the mask situation and Danielle Smith, with the time we've got left. First of all, how do you think she's doing? I mean, is she going to win the next election, or are you going to end up with communists back in power?
I think she'll do just fine. I think she'll be fine. I think she's got the broad support of Albertans. I think that she's a leader that Albertans wanted. We like somebody who's feisty and fiery, right? We were heavily involved in the protests and things like that. So really at the forefront, there was a lot of Albertans there. So
yeah,
she's a premier that we need. I think that there's no doubt about it, right? And she really connects, I think, with what our values are out here.
I got to ask you, this from the Western Standard, as it turns out, 59% of Canadians would support and follow that guidance. It's the masking. About 28% say they would follow the recommendation, but be unhappy about it. According to this poll, more than 40% of Canadians would be unhappy with mask mandates. As it turns out, 59% would support. Where are all these Canadians who want? I mean, look, you want to staple a mask on your face or face covering. What do I care? Put it on. Just don't tell me what to do. Why is that complicated? Why they? And their mind is like, well, if you're not wearing a mask, that means you are an anti-masker. No, I don't want to wear one, but I'm okay with you putting one on your face. And this whole thing with Trudeau walking around pretending to get his shot and wearing having no mask when he's talking to people, a pharmacy guy, and then walking over a few steps and putting his mask on, before he gets his shot. It was just weird. It was like pantomime. What's going on here? And what's that situation in Alberta where Danielle Smith has come out? Look, you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. You don't want to wear one, you don't have to. We're not going to force you. Hell, even in Ontario, Doug Ford now shows up at the legislature, doesn't have a mask on his face. So I don't know what got into him, but I'm glad he did it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see that many people who want them back, so I'm not sure who this, 59% or whatever is. I would certainly be unhappy about it. I would probably wear a mask if I was forced to wear a mask. I would do it. I just, what really bothers me is that they keep coming out at schools specifically, right? Like schools should be masking, right? And this is like what we keep on hearing, and I have huge problems with that. I think that the kids are relatively safe. And, they should be going to school unmasked and interacting with other little people the way that our children should be. So, there's the psychological damage is real, right? There's also a lot of studies out there that say that one-way masking works. If you wear a high quality N95 mask, you're pretty protected, right? So nobody's stopping anybody from doing that. But it's just, they feel like, and sure, maybe there is more protection if everybody's masked. But let's face it, the sky didn't fall. We were told that, the dreaded whatever wave we're on, is it the 7th or the 8th? I think that's the 8th or something like that. We were told the sky was going to fall if we took away masks, and that didn't happen, right? It didn't happen. So I think we're doing pretty well. We're seeing a lot of respiratory cases in the hospitals, but, we've done precious little to ramp up our capacity. And a lot of those are not COVID cases, right? They're normal seasonal respiratory viruses, right? RSV and flu in kids and adults, right? So, if we start masking up again, we're going to be masking up in perpetuity. We'll be doing it.
Yeah, I would think so. How are your kids handling it? I know you got a couple.
Good. One's actually sick right now. He doesn't have COVID, I don't think. I think maybe he's got RSV, but he's at home and resting. So, yeah, they're happy. They know their mom is a little bit of a yahoo. That I went to Ottawa to protest. They're doing okay. I know that they don't want to see a return to masking. They were really, really happy about that. And I told them about how people went and protested so that they could go to school without masks on and, get back to activities. So, as far as they're concerned, and I think it's the opinion of a lot of children, the truckers were heroes. So that's how they feel about it.
Lots of teaching about the convoy in the school system, if at all. I mean, I could see where it would be a topic of conversation.
Yeah, well, I mean, their teachers know that I went, and I protested and things like that, and I got a bit of a smackdown for doing that. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm glad that it's something that I participated in. I think it was a really, really important moment in Canadian history, and I think it was time, and it was part of a process. Even if they had to roll back mandates on their own, I think that Canadians needed to show the government that we weren't the pushovers that we were taken to be. I think it was a really, really important thing that we made a stand, right?
Yeah, I think you're going in history as having done something very important for the country. Andy, thank you so much for coming on the show. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I'm hoping to, I think Rebel News has got an event coming up on the 19th. So I'm hoping to attend that. So maybe we can get together and talk about what goes on there. Tomorrow is going to be there and a lot of great people are going to be there. So yeah, it'll be fun. Anyways, I'll try to keep watching committees and keep you updated. There's a lot going on right now, though.
Appreciate it. Andy Lee, coming to us from Calgary, Alberta. Let's take a break. Back with more News Talk Saga 960 and the Mark Petronis Show after this.